The unexpected encounter. Marcus Reed wiped the sweat from his brow as he crouched beneath the life support console on Trade Station. Epsilon 7. The plasma converters had been acting up for 3 days straight, and if he didn't get them stabilized, soon, the entire diplomatic wing would lose atmospheric processing. Not exactly the kind of malfunction you wanted during the most important interspecies negotiations in galactic history. The Zentarian delegation had arrived that morning, and already the station buzzed with nervous energy. First contact with a new species always brought complications. The Zentarians represented something unprecedented, a civilization that had mastered gravity manipulation. It's technology that could revolutionize space travel. Marcus adjusted his grip on the plasma wrench and dove deeper into the maze of conduits. The familiar hum of machinery surrounded him like an old friend's embrace. He understood machines. They were logical, predictable, honest about their needs. Unlike the complex web of politics and diplomacy happening just floors above his head. "Excuse it, me, Engineer Reed." The voice was melodic, carrying an accent he'd never heard before. Marcus extracted himself from the console housing and turned around, then promptly forgot how to breathe. A woman stood in the maintenance bay doorway, but calling her simply a woman felt inadequate. Her skin held a subtle blue-silver shimmer that seemed to shift with the light, and her hair cascaded down her back in waves of deep indigo. Why most striking were her eyes, large, violet, with an inner luminescence that reminded him of nebula photography. She wore what appeared to be a flowing silk wrap that barely qualified as clothing. The gossamer fabric clung to her curves while leaving little to the imagination, secured only by delicate chains at her shoulders and waist. "I'm Zara Valtheri, cultural liaison for the Zentarian delegation," she continued, apparently oblivious to Marcus's stunned silence. "I was directed to introduce myself to key station personnel." Marcus cleared his throat and stood, suddenly aware of his grease-stained coveralls and unkempt appearance. "Marcus Reed, Chief Engineer." "Ma'am, I have to ask, is that standard diplomatic attire where you come from?" Zara tilted her head with curious innocence. "This is quite formal by our standards. I'm Zantari Prime. Our gravity is nearly 3 times what you experience here. Fabric becomes restrictive and painful under such pressure. We've evolved to prefer minimal coverage." 3 times Earth gravity? Marcus found himself genuinely intrigued despite his distraction. "How do you function?" "In standard galactic environments, we adapt, though it takes considerable effort." Zara stepped closer, and Marcus caught a scent like ocean breeze, mixed with something floral. "Our bone density is much greater than yours, and our muscle tissue is significantly more efficient. What feels normal to you feels almost weightless." To us, she moved with fluid grace that seemed to defy physics, each step flowing into the next like water. Marcus watched, fascinated, as she examined the maintenance equipment with genuine interest. "Your work must require great precision," she observed, running her fingers along a diagnostic panel. "These systems maintain life for thousands of beings." "Just doing my job," Marcus replied, though something in her tone made the work sound more noble than he'd ever considered. "Someone has to keep the lights on." Zara's luminous eyes met his directly. "In Zentarian culture, those who maintain life-giving systems are revered as guardians. Your role would be considered sacred." Heat crept up Marcus's neck under her intense gaze. "Sacred seems like a strong word for turning wrenches and cleaning plasma filters." "Perhaps your people don't fully appreciate what they have," she said, softly, moving closer until he could see the intricate patterns in her shimmering skin. "On my world, we understand that life hangs by the thinnest threads. Those who tend to those threads deserve great respect." The proximity was doing dangerous things to Marcus's concentration. Her presence seemed to fill the entire maintenance bay, making the familiar space feel suddenly intimate. "What brings you down to engineering, Miss Valtheri?" "I imagine the diplomatic reception is more exciting than watching me wrestle with recalcitrant machinery." Zara smiled, and the expression transformed her face completely. "I find practical skills far more fascinating than political speeches. Besides, I wanted to understand how your people maintain such complex systems. Zentarian technology operates on different principles. Gravity manipulation, right?" That's what has the brass so excited. Among other things. Her smile turned mysterious, though I suspect some discoveries are better experienced than explained. Before Marcus could ask what she meant, his communicator chirped. Read here. Marcus, we need you in Section 12 immediately. The atmospheric processors are fluctuating. Again, Commander Torres's voice carried barely concealed frustration. Marcus sighed and began gathering his tools. Duty calls. But if you're really interested in seeing how we keep this rust bucket running, you're welcome to observe some time when I'm not racing against life support failure. I would like that very much, Zara replied, her violet eyes holding promises. He didn't dare interpret. Perhaps tonight after the formal ceremonies conclude? I find I sleep little in low-gravity environments. Marcus nearly dropped his plasma wrench. Tonight works for me as he headed toward the door. Zara's voice followed him. Marcus, wear something comfortable? Where I come from, we believe the best learning happens when artificial barriers are removed. Marcus spent the rest of his shift trying not to think about what that might mean. Cultural negotiations formal reception hall buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from dozens of species mingled under the soft glow of bioluminescent panels. Marcus tugged at the collar of his dress uniform, feeling completely out of place among the diplomats and dignitaries. He'd only attended because Commander Torres insisted all department heads make an appearance during the Zentarian cultural presentation. Zara stood at the center of attention, now wearing what she'd described as formal attire, an arrangement of flowing fabrics that somehow revealed more, while covering slightly more. She moved through demonstrations of Zentarian customs with practiced grace, explaining their philosophy of harmony with gravitational forces, as you can. Observe, Zara addressed the gathered crowd. Zentarian physiology has adapted to work with gravity rather than against it. Our clothing, architecture, even our social structures reflect this principle. Elder Crix, the Zentarian delegation leader, nodded approvingly. The ancient being's presence commanded respect despite his diminutive stature and seemingly fragile appearance. Marcus had learned that looks could be deceiving. Crix possessed the ability to manipulate local gravity fields with casual gestures. Fascinating, commented Dr. Vance, the station's chief medical officer. Your species has essentially evolved beyond the need for extensive protection from environmental factors. Protection can become prison if taken too far, Zara replied, her gaze finding Marcus across the room. Sometimes what appears vulnerable is actually perfectly adapted to its environment. Commander Torres stepped forward, her military bearing. Rigid with protocol, Ms. Valtheri, while we appreciate your cultural demonstrations, there are practical concerns about station regulations and interspecies comfort levels. An uncomfortable silence settled over the gathering. Marcus could see the tension building between human military efficiency and Zentarian cultural expression. He found himself stepping forward before conscious thought caught up. If I may, Commander, Marcus said, surprised by his own boldness. Understanding Zentarian customs might help us design better collaborative spaces. Their gravity manipulation technology could revolutionize our engineering capabilities. Zara's smile rewarded his intervention. Engineer Reed raises an excellent point. True cooperation requires understanding, not just tolerance. Elder Crix studied Marcus with ancient eyes that seemed to see through surface appearances. You speak with wisdom, young guardian of systems. Perhaps you would join us for private discussions tomorrow. Technical minds often find common ground where diplomats struggle. Marcus felt the weight of dozens of stares, but Zara's encouraging nod gave him courage. I'd be honored, Elder Crix. After the formal presentations concluded, Marcus found himself on the observation deck, gazing out at the starfield through the massive transparent aluminum windows. The reception had drained him more than a double shift in engineering. Beautiful view, Zara's voice came from behind him. Warm and intimate after the formal presentations, he turned to find her silhouetted against the starlight, the flowing fabrics of her attire catching the cosmic glow. It helps me think. Space has a way of putting problems in perspective. She moved to stand beside him, close enough that he could feel warmth radiating from her skin. On Centauri Prime, we have observation chambers built into mountain peaks. The gravity makes the stars appear to dance. Sounds incredible, Marcus said, acutely aware of her proximity. Must be hard being away from home. Sometimes, Zara admitted, her voice softer now. Though I'm discovering that new environments can offer unexpected pleasures. She turned toward him, and suddenly, the vast observation deck felt intimate as a closet. The starlight played across her luminous features, highlighting the delicate patterns in her skin that seemed to pulse with their own rhythm. Zara, Marcus began, then lost track of what he'd intended to say as she stepped closer. Yes, she whispered, her violet eyes searching his face. This afternoon, when you mentioned learning without artificial barriers, ... Lord, I believe understanding requires honesty, she replied, reaching up to touch his cheek with fingertips that felt electric against his skin. Your people wear so many layers, clothing, protocols, emotional defenses. How can you truly know each other? Marcus caught her hand, marveling at the strength he could feel beneath the delicate appearance. Some barriers exist for good reasons. To protect people from getting hurt, or to protect them from truly living, Zara countered, intertwining their fingers. On my world, we believe that vulnerability shared becomes strength multiplied. The kiss happened naturally, drawn by forces as inevitable as gravity itself. Her lips tasted like starlight and promises, and when she pressed against him, Marcus discovered that her seemingly delicate form possessed surprising strength and warmth that seemed to flow directly into his soul. When they finally separated, both were breathing hard. Zara smiled up at him with an expression of wonder and mischief. Perhaps, she murmured, it's time for that private demonstration I mentioned. Marcus felt his resolve wavering like a gravity field fluctuation. Zara, we should be careful. Interspecies protocols exist for reasons. Some protocols, she said, trailing her fingers down his chest, were written by those who feared discovery more than they desired truth. As if summoned by the mention of protocols, Commander Torres's voice echoed across the observation deck. Engineer Reed, need to discuss tomorrow's technical consultations. They stepped apart quickly, but not before Torres's sharp eyes caught the charged atmosphere between them. Her expression suggested she filed the information away for future consideration. Of course, Commander Marcus replied, proud that his voice remained steady. Miss Valtheri was just explaining Zentarian engineering philosophies. Torres's smile was diplomatic but knowing. I'm sure it was educational. Miss Valtheri, Elder Crix asked me to inform you that the delegation requires your presence for evening meditation. Zara nodded gracefully. Naturally. Cue, Commander. As Torres departed, Zara turned back to Marcus with a look that promised their conversation was far from over. Tomorrow, she said softly, after your technical consultations with Elder Crix. My quarters. Section 7. Come as yourself, Marcus Reed. Not as the careful engineer who hides behind protocols. Leaving Marcus Crace, leaving Marcus alone with the stars and a burning curiosity about what tomorrow might bring. Gravity's pull. Marcus stood outside Zara's quarters in Section 7, holding a bottle of Terran wine and questioning every decision that had led to this moment. The day's technical consultations with Elder Crix had been extraordinary. The Zentarian leader had shared gravitational manipulation theories that could revolutionize space travel. But now, facing Zara's door, all thoughts of technology fled his mind. The door chimed softly when he pressed the entry signal. Please enter, came Zara's melodic voice from within. The quarters had been transformed into something that belonged in a fairy tale rather than a space station. Gossamer fabrics draped from the ceiling created intimate alcoves, while soft bioluminescent panels cast everything in warm, ethereal light. The artificial gravity field had been adjusted, Marcus realized. Feeling slightly lighter on his feet, Zara emerged from behind a shimmering curtain wearing what could generously be called a garment-flowing material that seemed to be made of captured starlight, moving with her body like liquid silk. In the adjusted gravity, her movements became even more graceful, like a dancer freed from earthly constraints. Welcome to my sanctuary, she said, gesturing to cushions arranged around a low table laden with exotic fruits and what appeared to be Zentarian delicacies. I've created an environment more similar to my home world. Marcus offered the wine, feeling suddenly clumsy in the altered gravity. I wasn't sure what to bring to a cross-cultural dinner party. Zara's laugh was like music. Terran wine is perfect. I've heard it's made from fruits that grow in your natural gravity. Very romantic by our standards. She accepted the bottle and moved toward what Marcus assumed was a food preparation area, her body adapting effortlessly to the gravitational changes. Sit, please. Let me show you how Zentarians truly dine. Marcus settled onto the cushions, watching as Zara prepared their meal with movements that seemed choreographed. In the lower gravity, she could leap gracefully between surfaces, reaching high shelves and turning simple food preparation into an artistic performance. On Zentari Prime, she explained, while arranging delicate pastries on a platter, meals are communal rituals of intimacy. We believe that sharing food while experiencing natural gravitational harmony creates deep bonds between individuals. She settled beside him on the cushions, close enough that her warmth enveloped him like a personal atmosphere. The meal became an exploration of tastes and textures, with Zara guiding him through exotic flavors while explaining their cultural significance. This fruit, she said, offering him a morsel from her own fingers, only ripens in high gravity environments. Pressure concentrates its essence, making it incredibly intense. Marcus accepted the fruit from her fingertips, the intimate gesture sending electricity through his nervous system. The flavor exploded across his palate, sweet and complex, with notes he couldn't identify. Incredible, he breathed, watching her eyes light up with pleasure at his reaction. Intensity often requires pressure, Zara observed, moving closer until their knees touched. Just as the most beautiful crystals form deep underground, where forces are strongest. The conversation flowed as naturally as the wine, touching on everything from engineering principles to philosophical questions about life and connection. Marcus found himself sharing thoughts he'd never voiced to another soul, drawn out by Zara's genuine interest and insight. Tell me about your childhood, Zara requested, curling against his side with feline grace. What made you want to tend the life-giving systems? Marcus wrapped his arm around her, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him, despite their species differences. My father was a maintenance engineer on a colony ship. I grew up understanding that machinery failures meant people died. Simple as that. Noble purpose, Zara murmured, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest through his shirt. On Zentari, Prime children are taught that every action affects the gravitational harmony of our world. Individual responsibility for collective well-being. Their philosophical discussion grew increasingly intimate as the evening progressed, with Zara demonstrating Zentarian meditation techniques that required close physical contact. She guided his hands to pressure points on her body, explaining how Zentarians channeled gravitational forces through touch. Feel here, she whispered, placing his palm against the curve of her neck where her pulse fluttered like a hummingbird's wings. This is where we sense gravitational flux most acutely. Marcus felt more than her pulse beneath his fingers. There was something else, a subtle vibration that seemed to resonate with some deep part of his own physiology. That's incredible. It's like you're tuned to some cosmic frequency. Zara's eyes were half closed, her expression blissful. We are. Every Zentarian can feel the gravitational songs of nearby bodies, planets, stars, even other people. You have your own gravitational signature, Marcus, unique and beautiful. She guided his other hand to rest just above her heart, where the strange vibration was stronger. What am I feeling? He asked, mesmerized by the sensation. My gravitational field? Responding to yours, Zara replied, her voice husky. When Zentarians are attracted to someone, our fields try to synchronize. It's how we know we've found potential mates. The word hung between them, loaded with implications. Marcus started to pull back, but Zara's hands covered his, keeping them in place. Don't retreat into your careful protocols now, she pleaded, her violet eyes searching his face. Can't you feel it too? The pull between us? Marcus could deny the attraction no more than he could deny gravity itself. The careful barriers he'd maintained began crumbling under her touch, and the wine and the intimate atmosphere she'd created. Zara. He said her name, a prayer and a surrender. She rose gracefully in the low gravity, extending her hand to him. Let me show you how Zentarians truly connect with those they cherish. Marcus took her hand and allowed her to guide him toward Anne. Alcove draped in shimmering fabric. The adjusted gravity made every movement feel dreamlike, as if they existed in some space between reality and fantasy. Are you certain? He asked, even as his body betrayed his desire. Zara's answer was to pull him down onto the soft cushions. With her lips finding his in a kiss that tasted of alien wine and starlight and promises of discoveries yet to come, in the gentle, artificial gravity of her quarters. They explored the geography of connection across species lines, learning that some forms of communication transcended language, culture, and even biology itself. Between worlds, Marcus woke in Zara's arms as the station's artificial dawn cycle began, feeling more content than he had in years. The adjusted gravity in her quarters made everything feel dreamlike, including the incredible night they'd shared. Zara's skin still held that subtle luminescent quality in the soft morning light. Her breathing was so gentle he had to watch carefully to confirm she was alive. A harsh alarm shattered the peaceful moment. All personnel, 2 emergency stations. Code Yellow Security Alert. All personnel, 2 emergency stations. Marcus was moving before full consciousness returned, years of emergency drills taking over. Zara sat up gracefully, instantly alert despite having been deeply asleep moments before. What does Code Yellow signify? She asked, already reaching for her flowing garments. Potential security threat. Could be anything from equipment malfunction to hostile action. Marcus was pulling on. His uniform, his engineer's mind already running through possibilities. I need to get to the command center. Zara caught his arm as he headed for the door. Marcus, be careful. Interspecies incidents can escalate quickly when fear takes hold. Her violet eyes held genuine concern, and Marcus paused to kiss her forehead. This is probably just a sensor glitch or diplomatic miscommunication. I'll find you as soon as it's resolved. The corridors buzzed with activity as personnel hurried to their assigned stations. Marcus reached the command center to find Commander Torres, coordinating with department heads while monitoring tactical displays that showed unauthorized ships approaching the station. Read. Thank God, Torres said without looking up from her. Consul, we've got 3 unmarked vessels on intercept course refusing to respond to hails. I need all systems at peak efficiency in case this goes sideways. What's the situation? Marcus asked, taking his position at the engineering station. Unknown faction, possibly pirates or separatists. They appeared on sensors an hour ago and have been closing steadily. Torres's expression was grim. The timing can't be coincidental. They're clearly targeting the Zentarian delegation. Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. Where's the delegation now? Secure in their quarters under protective detail. Elder Crix insisted they could defend themselves if necessary, but we're not taking chances. The tactical display showed the approaching ships in stark detail, angular aggressive designs that spoke of military purpose rather than exploration. Marcus had seen similar vessels and intelligence briefings about fringe groups opposed to alien contact. Incoming transmission, announced the communications officer. It's directed at the Zentarian delegation. Put it through, Torres ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a scarred human face twisted with fanatical hatred. Zentarian abominations, the figure spat. You contaminate our galaxy with your presence. Withdraw immediately, or face the consequences of human purity. Doctrine. Marcus's blood ran cold. He'd heard of the human purity movement, a radical faction that opposed any contact with alien species. They'd been responsible for several attacks on trade vessels and colonial outposts. Elder Crix's voice came through the station's comm system. Calm and measured. We mean no harm to your people. Our mission is peaceful cooperation for mutual benefit. Lies, the radical leader screamed. We know about your corruption of our citizens. Surrender the human collaborators and depart, or we will cleanse this. A station of alien influence. The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in tense silence. Torres began issuing orders for defensive preparations, but Marcus's thoughts were racing toward more personal concerns. Commander, Marcus said, Quietly, if they know about human collaborators, they might have intelligence about specific individuals. Torres's sharp gaze met his. Engineer, please tell me you haven't compromised operational security with your new friend. Before Marcus could respond, the station shuddered under weapons fire. The lights flickered as power systems struggled to compensate for the attack. Shields holding at 80%, reported the tactical officer. They're using concentrated plasma bursts, trying to overload our defensive grid. Turn fire. Minimum necessary force, Torres ordered. We're trying to disable, not destroy. Marcus worked frantically at his console, rerouting power to maintain critical systems while the battle raged around the station. Explosions echoed through the corridors, and emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red. Marcus Reed, to engineering, please respond. His communicator crackled with Zara's voice, tight with worry. I'm here, he replied, relief flooding through him at the sound of her voice. Are you safe? The delegation is secure, but there's something you should know. Elder Crix believes this attack was specifically timed to disrupt our cultural exchange program. Someone provided these extremists with detailed intelligence about our mission. Marcus felt the implications hit him like a physical blow. Zara, listen carefully. Get to emergency shelter Alpha 7. It's reinforced and has independent life support. What about you? I have to maintain power systems or we're all dead. Let's get somewhere safe, please. The station shook under another barrage, and Marcus heard hull breaches being reported from the outer sections. The attackers were systematically targeting life support infrastructure, trying to force an evacuation. Commander Marcus called out, "They're not trying to destroy the station. They want us to abandon it so they can claim it was attacked by aliens. False flag operation." Torres nodded grimly, which means they'll keep escalating until we either flee or fight back hard enough to give them martyrs. Clever bastards. Another explosion, closer this time. Marcus's console showed critical failures cascading through multiple systems. The station was slowly dying around them. All hands, this is Elder Crix. The Zentarian's voice echoed through. The CUM system, with newfound authority? Stand clear of sections 12 through 15. What's he planning? Torres demanded. Marcus felt the answer in his bones as the station's gravity field began fluctuating wildly. Bulkheads groaned under shifting stresses, and loose objects began floating as local gravity fields destabilized. On the tactical display, the attacking ships suddenly found themselves caught in powerful gravitational distortions. Their weapons. Fire went wide as their targeting systems struggled with constantly changing reference frames. One vessel spun helplessly as its engines fought against directional gravity that pulled in 3 directions simultaneously. Impossible, Torres breathed. He's manipulating gravity across multiple sectors simultaneously. The battle turned in moments. The attacking ships, designed for conventional space combat, had no defense against gravitational weapons. 2 vessels retreated quickly while the third suffered critical engine failure and drifted. Helplessly, as the immediate threat passed, Marcus's thoughts turned immediately to Zara. No, the gravitational manipulation had been felt throughout the station, and he needed to make sure she was safe, Commander requesting permission to check on the delegation's status. Torres studied him for a long moment. Go. But Reed, after this is over, we need to have a serious conversation about operational security and personal relationships. Marcus nodded, understanding the unspoken warning. His relationship with Zara had just become a matter of station security, whether he liked it or not. Marcus found the Zentarian delegation quarters in controlled chaos. Security personnel coordinated with Zentarian guards, while medical teams treated minor injuries from the gravitational disturbances. Elder Crix sat in meditation posture, apparently. Exhausted from his extraordinary display of power, Zara emerged from the secure area the moment she saw Marcus, launching herself into his arms with desperate relief. In the restored normal gravity, the impact nearly knocked him over, but he held her tight, breathing in her familiar scent and letting the terror of the last few hours slowly release its grip on his chest. I thought I might lose you before we truly found each other, she whispered against his neck. Not happening, Marcus replied firmly. We've got too much to explore yet. Elder Crix's ancient eyes opened, focusing on the embracing couple with an expression of gentle amusement. Young ones, your gravitational resonance has been quite evident throughout this crisis. Such synchronization is rare, even among my people, Commander. Torres approached with Dr. Vance and several security officers. Her expression was serious, but not hostile. Elder Crix, on behalf of the Federation Council, I want to apologize for the attack by human extremists. Their actions don't represent our government or our people. Violence born of fear is a universal constant, Crix replied with sad wisdom. What matters now is how we choose to respond. Hatred answered with hatred only breeds more darkness. Torres nodded respectfully, then turned to Marcus and Zara. We need to discuss the security implications of your relationship. The attackers specifically mentioned human collaborators, which suggests they had detailed intelligence about station personnel. Marcus felt Zara tense in his arms, but Elder Crix spoke before either of them could respond. Commander, if I may offer perspective, the connection between these two has been instrumental in our successful negotiations. It's their willingness to bridge cultural differences demonstrates the potential for our species' cooperation. Dr. Vance stepped forward, her scientific curiosity evident. Elder Crix, the gravitational manipulation you demonstrated today could revolutionize everything from medicine to engineering, but it also represents power that some humans will fear. Fear of the unknown is natural, Crix acknowledged, but fear that becomes hatred serves no one. Perhaps it's time for a different approach to interspecies relations. He gestured to Marcus and Zara, still held close together. These two have discovered something that protocols and diplomatic treaties cannot provide: genuine understanding. Born of emotional connection, their bond proves that biological differences need not prevent deep compatibility. Torres looked skeptical. Elder Crix, with respect, personal relationships between species representatives create complications. There are protocols, regulations, written by those who never experienced what these young ones have found. Crix interrupted gently. Mander, what if personal connections are not complications but solutions? Over the following hours, as station systems were repaired and the crisis aftermath managed, an unprecedented conversation began. Elder Crix proposed a radical new approach to interspecies cooperation, cultural exchange programs that encourage personal bonds rather than merely formal treaties. Traditional diplomacy operates on the assumption that distance creates safety. Crix explained to the assembled station leadership, but distance also enables misunderstanding and fear. Intimacy requires vulnerability, but it also creates investment in mutual well-being. Marcus found himself speaking up, surprising everyone, including himself. The elder's right. Before I knew Zara personally, Zentarians were just an abstract concept. Now they're real people with hopes and fears and dreams. That changes everything. Squeezed his hand, her violet eyes shining with pride and affection. In Zentarian philosophy, we say that gravity connects all things, not just physical objects, but hearts and minds and spirits. Marcus and I have proven that such connections can exist across any distance, any difference. Dr. Vance leaned forward. With interest, you're suggesting that emotional bonds could be a foundation for interspecies cooperation. It's not just suggesting, Crix replied. Demonstrating. Observe how these two have navigated cultural differences through understanding rather than mere tolerance. Their intimacy has created knowledge that no amount of formal study could provide. Torres remained cautious. What about the security implications? The extremist attack was specifically triggered by evidence of human-alien relationships. Extremists will always find reasons for hatred, Zara observed, but their attacks also revealed something important. They fear connection more than they fear difference. That suggests connection is indeed a powerful force for change. Marcus felt the conversation reaching a pivotal moment. Commander, what if we're looking at this backwards? Instead of seeing personal relationships as security risks, what if they're our greatest asset for preventing conflicts? Elder Crix smiled with ancient approval. Wisdom speaks through young voices. This station has become something unprecedented, a place where beings from different worlds can discover they share the same fundamental desires for understanding, companionship, and love. The debate continued through the night, but gradually consensus emerged around a revolutionary concept: rather than maintaining careful distance between species. The station would become a model for integrated living, a place where personal connections could flourish alongside political cooperation. It won't be easy, Torres acknowledged finally. We'll face opposition from conservative factions on both sides, but the alternative seems to be endless cycles of fear and conflict. As dawn approached, Marcus stood with Zara on the observation deck where they'd shared their first kiss. The stars looked the same, but everything else had changed. They were no longer just individuals exploring attraction across species lines. They'd become symbols of possibility, pioneers of a new kind of relationship between worlds. No pressure, Zara teased, reading his thoughts with that intuitive understanding they developed. Just the fate of intergalactic cooperation resting on whether we can make this work, Marcus replied, pulling her close. Good thing I'm falling in love with you. Zara's luminous smile could have powered the station's main reactor. In Zentarian, we have a saying, love is the gravity that holds the universe together. I think we're about to test that theory. Their kiss tasted like starlight and possibility. All around them, the station hummed with the promise of futures yet to be discovered.